Coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. Guys, that was an unbelievable Thursday night game yesterday. Maybe the best we've seen in 5 years that I can think of. Even though Al Michaels did everything he could to make that game boring, it didn't matter because the Lions and the Packers held up their own and had an unbelievable 34-31 game. And obviously, every podcast and TV show in the world right now is going to be talking about the game, Dan Campbell's decision to go for it on that fourth down, which I totally agreed with, but I'll get into that in another episode. His, big cojones, the Packers officiating issues, all of that stuff. But I think with the analysis of the game being so potent because it was a primetime game and obviously it's a Friday, everyone's talking about the individual Thursday night matchup. People are missing the general scope of what's going on in the NFL, which is the Lions have established themselves as undoubtedly, inarguably the best team in the National Football League. There is no debate for anybody else anymore. And I'll go through every single reason why, because the reasons are just so obvious. And yet it seems like because they're the Lions and they have this tainted reputation of always choking and always picking the exact worst time to fall down that ladder, people are kind of immune to accepting that the Lions are clearly and obviously the best team in football. Because, first of all, they have the best record in the NFL. Every coach, GM, old school guy I know, you are what your record says you are. And the Lions are 12-1. And the way they've done it is so impressive because we praise the Chiefs for figuring out ways to win games and that champions mentality of they're going to make every big play. It definitely seems like the Lions have that gene now. Me personally, as a fan last night, every single big fourth down, I thought we were going to get it. Every single big third down, I thought we were going to call the exact right play to get a first. I thought Jared Goff was going to make another play that Jordan Love couldn't make. And they're on an 11-game win streak right now, which is the longest in 5 years since the Steelers started 11-0 in 2020. And obviously this team is levels above that Steelers team because every single time they're in deficits, their grit mentality and their will to win, like the Chiefs have, that championship mentality goes through, and they're on an 11-game win streak with 18 players on injury reserve. 18 players. No other team in the NFL has more than 15. And out of those 18 players on IR, 13 of them are on the defensive side of the football. 13 defensive players on IR. That is a starting defense plus 2 backups. All out for the Lions, mostly on the D-line and linebacker room. No other team has more than 7 defenders on injury reserve. And it just doesn't matter because the Lions have by far and clearly and objectively the best offense in the league right now, and maybe the best offense we've seen since the Kansas City Chiefs in, what was that year? That maybe 2018 Kansas City. They also had a great year in 2022. But this offense is undisputedly the best in football right now. They have the league's best offense right now by a whole 3 points per game at 32 a game. Next closest is Buffalo at 29. They have such balance. Obviously, it all starts with the best running back duo ever in Sonic and Knuckles, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. If you can name a better running back duo in history, go for it, but you're going to have to go back to like the Hogs with the Washington Red, their old name, or I don't know, back in the 60s with the Green Bay Packers, but they are one of the best ever. So it starts with that and the best O-line in football that they're running behind. They have a quarterback who's playing MVP football right now. If you take out that Houston game with the 5 picks, which I think 4 of them weren't his fault. There was a Hail Mary in there, 2 tip passes, but if you go back and watch that game, it really wasn't that bad. Take out those 5 picks, Goff is 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions with a 109 passer rating. If he didn't have that one fluky game, he is running away with the MVP right now. They obviously have a play caller, which every team in the NFL seemingly wants to get their hands on. And he's such a hot commodity that he knows that he doesn't have to take every job that's offered to him. He can pick and choose and pick the right spot, which is why I think he might come back next year. But again, that's a story for another day. There's no argument for any other team having a better offense right now. The Lions have everything you want. They have the possession number one wide receiver who they go to whenever, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have the speed guy in Jamison Williams, who's been playing some of his best ball. They've got the third wide receiver, big body, Jawan Jennings type, in Tim Patrick, who had 2 touchdowns last night, which I'm so happy for him, by the way. And they are simply putting it on everybody they see, 32 points per game. And it's not like they're doing this against cupcakes either. Out of the 4 best teams in football, which in my opinion are inarguably the Lions, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Bills. Those are the 4 best teams right now. They're on a tier by themselves. Just below them is Baltimore, Pittsburgh. You can put Minnesota, Green Bay there if you want. The Lions have played the toughest schedule out of those 4 teams. That is a fact. The Bills have played the second hardest, then Philly, then the Chiefs. But they also play in maybe the toughest division ever. Again, that's what the numbers say. The highest winning percentage by the top 3 teams in the division, in a division, coming into week 14 ever is the NFC North this year. Coming into this week, the top 3 teams had the highest win percentage ever in any division. And even with that schedule, they have the best offense in the NFL and they have the best point differential in the NFL by a mile. They're plus 183 right now. That's not including the Green Bay game last night because I wanted it to be fair. They play the same amount of weeks. The second closest is Buffalo at plus 131. They're over 50 points more than the Bills. And in terms of analytics and all of the smart guy stats that everyone likes to point out to me when the Lions were really bad and I thought they were good, Detroit's easily the best team right now in all of them. They're running away in DVOA. They're at 43% right now. The next closest is Baltimore at 53. And if you don't know what DVOA is, essentially it calculates how successful each team is at each down and distance and then compares that to league average defenses. It's all stuff that goes way over my head, but the analytics crowd and the sharp bettors crowd, they really care about that stat. The Lions are running away with it. And another stat that people really care about is the Football Power Index, which it measures a team's true strength of schedule and on a net point scale, which is basically the expected point margin that they would have against a regular team. Again, all of these stats are put into a giant computer and taken out. But in terms of that stat, the Lions are at plus 8.5. The next closest is Buffalo at plus 6.6. So not only are they playing in the toughest division ever, not only do they have the toughest schedule out of the top 4 teams in the league, they're also just dominating all of those teams. And they just beat the Packers last night, who are undisputedly, respect to the Packers, a top 10 team in the NFL. I would probably have them around 7-6. But they just beat a top 10 team in the league with Jamal Adams playing legit important snaps for them at linebacker, which isn't even his general position. He's a safety. So the defense, which has been beat to hell, it's still good enough to beat a top 10 team in football. And the defense, which was awesome to start the year, people forget when they were healthy with Hutchinson and this secondary, which has been unbelievable. They're only going to get more healthy. It's not like they have a bunch of guys with season-ending injuries. Well, they do, but their depth is coming back. Alex Anzalone, one of their best linebackers, he's going to be back for playoffs. DJ Reader, Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Pascal, 3 pass rushers who they were missing yesterday against Green Bay. All 3 of them are probably going to be back next week coming off the mini bye when they play Buffalo. And just the cherry on top, before the game yesterday, I'm hearing a Thursday night report that this guy saying with his chest out, Aiden Hutchinson's going to play in the Super Bowl if the Lions make it there. And at this point, why would you not think the Lions are going to make it to a Super Bowl? They've done everything you need to do as a team. They've been beaten with injuries. They've played the toughest schedule they can. They are in the toughest division in football, and they're 12-1. They're 12-1. And for all the people saying, these 4th downs will come back to haunt them or whatever, Listen, going forward on fourth down for the Detroit Lions is not like going forward on fourth down with other teams. They don't shrink. There's no pressure like these other teams feel on fourth down because they do it so often. It's like a third down to them. There's no extra, oh, I got to get off the line quick, or I can't get off the line too quick. There's no second guessing because they know what they're going to do. They have their identity. And Dan Campbell is not going to change that for anybody. And I love him for that. They don't get tight in those situations because they've done it a million times. And oh, by the way, they have the highest conversion percentage on 4th and 3 and shorter in NFL history. So when he goes for it on 4th and 1 after 4th and 1 last night, I'm all for it, except for that one on his own 30. I thought that was stupid. It's not just because he didn't get it. That was the one where I said before, don't do that. But he did it anyways because, again, 4th and 1, he's like, well, I mean, we have an 85, 90% chance of getting it. Might as well put the nail in their throat. Guys, people can come up with different narratives for different teams. I understand that Philly's playing unbelievable football right now and they just beat the Ravens. But if you watch that Philly-Ravens game, the Ravens dominated. They played better than Philly did. They just didn't capitalize on their opportunities. And they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And Philly, good for them. They ran the clock out and played better than Baltimore did in the fourth quarter. But Baltimore looked better than Philadelphia did. And Buffalo's been obviously awesome as of late, but they've got 2 losses. The Lions only have 1. And we'll see what happens next week when those 2 teams play each other. But for right now, it's not even a conversation. There's no debate. It's the Lions and then everybody else. For now, I think it goes Lions, Bills, Eagles, Chiefs. That's how I would have the top 4 teams. But after that win last night with 3rd, 4th, 5th string guys on defense, and you beat a divisional opponent who had everything to play for. That was their division winning lives on the line last night. If they didn't win that game, they had no chance at the division. And you know what? They didn't win the game, so they don't have any chance at the division. Green Bay wanted that game so bad. You could see it. They were chippy. They were in Detroit's face. They were talking smack before the game. They are clearly frustrated that Detroit has won 5 of the last 6 matchups against Green Bay. And this one, they beat them with no defense. There are certain things you can argue about in the NFL. There's so much, but the Lions currently being number 1 on the NFL power rankings and number 1 in Super Bowl odds is not one of them. It's not a conversation right now. The Lions are by far the best team in the league, and I don't want to hear anything about it until they lose again, which won't happen again this year. Sorry. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please leave a like on the video. If you didn't enjoy what you heard, leave a comment and tell me what you didn't agree with, because I love talking sports and responding to comments, so I'll definitely get back to you guys. Please subscribe if you haven't already. The Spit Sports Show just hit over 360 subscribers. Big things happening on the show. And as always, I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.